in Europe, in Asia, and also parts of the United States. It's the absolute shortest route if it can be handled with security and safety. Global climate change is offering new opportunities for international transportation networks. On the left you can see how the traffic has been the latest years. On the right you have the prognosis of how it will be in 2040 and from that time. You see the straight line over the North Pole are connecting into today's sea routes just out from Nordland, from the ports of Mo I Rana and Narvik. I said something about maritime safety and maritime security. When you saw the last picture, you saw also the route will pass the Spitsbergen Islands, Norwegian islands, will be the key to safety and security on the Northern Sea route. Norwegian land, partly administrated from northern Norway, and with a long history and tradition and knowledge of cooperating with Canada, Russia, Iceland, Denmark, Finland, and so on. Linking both Scandinavian Mediterranean corridor that goes to Stockholm and the North Sea Baltic corridor that goes to Tallinn. The route up to Mo I Rana and Narvik in our regions are the shortest way out from the Baltic area to the Atlantic. And you also reach a region in Norway that is one of the main regions of industrial production, fish farming, and also gas and oil. And if you see the picture of the landscaping down on the picture there, you see the industrial hub in Mo I Rana. In fact, it's Norway's biggest industrial hub, with logistic systems both to the harbor, to railroad, to roads, and with possibilities for dry port facilities that nowhere else in Norway can offer. So why is this important for us? When you see this map, you see the population in the different areas in the north. They are our customers. They can also be using our corridors or transport routes. As one of the most important industrial regions in Norway, we have also a significant activity offshore the past decade, and it's still growing. Not so dependent of the oil price as further south in the North Sea. But what can we do up to the tip? The Arctic region has a potential to become an integral part of the European competitiveness and to offer new access routes to the global market. Efficient connections to the Arctic region are encouraged by logistic hubs at the Baltic Sea, as we heard from our friends in Skåne. I want to lift up a bit the environmental dimension of the EU Arctic policy. IMO Marpol Code has changed the shipping trade industry more than any of us would believe just a few years ago. Today we have the ESI, environmental ship index that give the ports opportunity to give discounts to how they score at the index. But what about the ports itself? And what about the logistic systems, the corridors, the ports is a part of? Can we see in the future some sort of an environmental port index? This is the 10T system in Scandinavia. On one of the pictures you see the line from Mo i Rana through Kvarken to Helsinki and even over to Tallinn. It's a straight line. It's the absolute shortest line between the Baltic area and a port in the North Atlantic. Anyway, at the Norwegian National Bay, I have to remind you, Norway is still one of the world's major maritime nations. We have one of the world's largest merchant fleets. We are the world's third largest exporter of seafood. The Midway Alignment Project and a green route to Atlantic in Mo i Rana will result in a secure, environmentally and economically sustainable transport system between our region and the Baltic. This will expand the connections between a strong, fast-growing, internationally important regions. My signal, my input to your work with the DIP will be to think strategic, to think of the potential, not only of the volume today. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Ronnie. And the next speaker will need no introduction to you. He's a Portuguese man who supports Sporting Lisbon, unfortunately for him, as João Carvalho has already said. But Jose Antelmo is doing the speech on shipping, serving global trade, EU-US treaty, and the Panama Canal, and the external dimension of MoS. So with that big subject area, I'll give the floor to Jose.
Thank you very much, Brian. Do not be frightened. I will cut short this otherwise very long speech. I would just like to raise 2 or 3 issues. Well, the first one is, the first good news is that I have a cocktail waiting for you when it will come out of you. So that's the first news. If you survive it. Second one is that I'll cut really very much short into 2 things. Concerning the external dimension, of course, we are interested on the external dimension. Brian, well, the coordinators for Motorways of the Sea, and particularly Brian, were the first ones to have the courage to say that Trans-European networks should not be only internal market. We have to look into the potential of Europe. And we are the largest trading bloc in the world. We are 505 million inhabitants, and we need to use maritime transportation. So we need to think strategically. We need to make partnerships even with those that are filthy rich with oil. A little crisis looming there. But a fundamental issue, and I would leave it there, is that we need to guarantee security of supply. And of course, that only a fool would forget about the Northern Sea route potential or about the new opportunities of the TTIP. But about the Northern Sea route potential, we really need to go along with Sherpas. We really need to go along with the countries that are there for a very long time, that know it, that feel it in the bones, with Norway, with Iceland, and of course, with Finland and with Sweden, because we have a large partner in that area of the world, that is Russia. And there is no point in trying to either provoke the climate, the warming of the climate, so that the Northern Sea route opens up. So that there is no point in trying to promote it if we do not have an agreement with Russia that we can control, and that there will be transparency in the control of the traffic management throughout the Northern Sea route. I think that Brian has a full-time, and Wojciech, you have a full-time job there. It is not easy, but to have it as a real alternative, we have to guarantee control, traffic management, transparency, at least as good as the one that exists between Europe and America when it concerns East-West traffic. So that will be certainly a room, a window of opportunity, but it's also about the control, this navigation. Please use Motorways of the Sea and Motorways of the Sea projects to establish that cooperation basis. We need to do it, otherwise it's really no point. We have one accident in the Northern Sea route that is hidden by the Russian administration, and it's gone. For Europeans, it's gone, I would not say forever, not being dramatic, but it's gone for a long time. We'll have all the environmental supporters up there, or avoiding the use of the Northern Sea route. So we cannot afford these issues. Okay, the second point I would just like to tell is that, of course, and the DIP will certainly contain that, we will try and exploit every possibility of using also the Trans-European network and connections to serve European external trade, to increase our trade capacity. That's what we should be trying to do. And this is a difficult thing to do, because Europe, as far as Trans-European networks is concerned, has a little bit forgotten in the last years, not the very last years, but in the past, that it is typically a maritime nation. What made the wealth of Europe is maritime transportation. Look at the Dutch, the Portuguese, the Spanish, even the French on this thing. The cross-traders, Denmark, Sweden, UK. I mean, they, as far as I know, and I know that one for sure for the Portuguese, we were not using railways to go to India. That I can guarantee to you. And the bad news is that we will not be using railways to support the TTIP in exchanging goods with the United States. So the maritime is there again, and we need to make a move into that direction, and that's what the DIP should reflect. It will be up to you to do it. There are things that are possible, things that will not be possible, and I will just leave you with a reflection on one of the comments of CRPM that I like very much, and that's the one where one of the things that was requested is that we open up to bilateral projects between one member state and one third country. There is a big danger there. And the big danger there is, I understand the interest, but is the bilateral. So it's going to be what it has been good, and I think that the presentation from Morocco was superb on that, is the cooperation that Motorways of the Sea has been generating precisely by the fact that we are not fostering secret cooperation between two ports. We are fostering cooperation between two ports in the internal market, yes. And why? Because it is not secret, it's the internal market. But if we are supporting cooperation of one country with a third country alone, of course, we may create a big problem on this. And that is why we do the awesome thing of demanding that two countries, two ports in Europe from two different countries, establish the cooperation with the third country, because the whole objective is to favor trade, is to develop large projects like the one Morocco just presented, a cooperation in terms of network, in terms of exchange of information. That's what we need to support trade. And then let the industry decide. Let the industry invest. Let the industry do it. Let's not try and do a state of shipping. It will not work. It has never worked. So that's the only thing I would like to tell you. And that's the only disagreement I have with CRTN on this thing. And I know that you're not asking me for it, but that is a little bit the danger that we may go into that. This being said, of course, the BIP will guide the revision of the Turkey guidelines. And of course, it will certainly support this development of the relations with third countries, because that's what we need to support European trade. And we hope that UK will not become a third country as well. Okay, that's it. So it was a fast one because the cocktail is here. And yes.
I'm sorry for keeping you from the cocktail, but just a very short word, Irena Minutes from Digitax. So then thanks for the possibility to be present here and to listen to all the presentations today. Just on the customs side and a word on the ongoing activities, we are not standing still as well. So on the 1st of May, as many of you know, the UCC, the new Union Customs Code, entered into effect. This also offers new possibilities, such as, for example, harmonized data set. And I heard the data elements in many presentations, including the presentations from Sweden. So this offers new possibility. We are aiming at getting fully digital by 2020, as it was already mentioned by our Italian colleagues. Glad to be here, glad to cooperate. Just a note that indeed a lot will be happening also in the customs world in the coming years, including, for example, the proof of union status, documents that are going to become digital, including use of this new harmonized data set, which is fully aligned with WCO data model. Actually, we are going to have our new EU customs data model, which is, as I said, fully in line with the WCO. I think these are also new opportunities that will need to be utilized. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, can I just say something? Well, really, thank you very much for that. I, for one, who has been throughout the years saying nothing to declare, I, for one, know that transportation should not be fighting customs, or vice versa. We are, both of us, working for the safe trade of Europe. And I think that Motors of the Sea will more than welcome that DG Trade comes and makes a presentation of the new regulation, of your approach, because what we would like to do is to develop efficient tools that respect the framework that is the customs new regulation. We have no interest whatsoever in playing the apprentice, and trying to do something that goes against the best interests of Europe. So I think you are invited for the next, with the blessing of Brian, that has already told me this, and I was a little bit rushed. So for the next forum, I think it will be very good if you could make a presentation.
Jarek?
Yeah, no, yeah.
Jarek? Then the left,
Yes, so I have one intervention just for this session before I do my presentation, if I may.
Yes.
Because I'm very glad that we've covered so many potential areas of development going outside EU, motorways of the seas. I think, though, that we overlooked one which is very important and has got a huge potential, which is the 21st century maritime route, Silk Route. Because Chinese are developing something big along the Euro-Asian continent, and EU has started cooperating with them on this. The 14 EU member states became members of the Asian Infrastructure Development Bank, which will have 250 billion euros for geostrategic investments all over the world. We have Chinese already in Piraeus and in Rijeka, and I think that we have to cooperate with them because there is a big potential to take the cargo that we'll be bringing to Europe in both ways, also there, from the corridors. So I don't know, perhaps we should reflect on that if we can add it to our paper as a new area of development.
Of course. We will do so, and we can even book a lunch meeting in one of the Chinese restaurants here in Basel. But we will do that. Yeah, no, this is Jarek. Yeah, you said it. Now you have to write about it. Super, yeah.
You're not. Alex, you have you uploaded this from the email? So the idea and objective of this presentation is to tell you where we are in terms of motorways of the sea link project implementation and logistics related projects. What projects we implement in INEA, which one have we finished, what are the next steps in this process. So first of all, we have one group of projects which were implemented under the TNT MoS umbrella, and then we categorize them into three groups. One is pure links projects, so those ones which involve 2 ports and a maritime operator as a minimum requirement. Then we have environmental links, so to speak. And what is interesting is that all of them relate to installation of scrubbers. Because we discussed this project in the previous forum as a scrubbers project. However, we cannot forget that they equally, or a lot of them, have got port components which are important from the perspective of the second pillar of the detailed implementation plan. However, what is missing perhaps is that we haven't had so far link LNG projects. So this is something which we potentially need to exploit further in next calls and so on. And last but not least, we have the ICT projects promoting the integration of maritime transport into the logistic chain, and we've heard many examples of those today. In terms of those MoS links intermodal connections under TNT, we've had 14 projects with about 695 million of investments, and we've contributed with 125 million of EU money. This is the situation where these projects are located. So you see that, of course, the main area of the focus is in the Baltic Sea. However, the other areas are equally present, perhaps except the Black Sea, which we really need to exploit and stimulate further. But we've heard today that Brian will be going there with an important mission to stimulate their participation in the following calls. Then in terms of the Scrubbers link projects, if I may call them like that, we've got 7 under TNT, which have 164 million euros investments, and our contribution in terms of EU funding is 46 million. This is the situation where the successful links are. As you see, it's in the North Sea and Baltic Sea. This is basically in the area of TNT due to the SECA requirements, and projects were coming from that part of Europe asking for support. We've got some projects after the first CEF call as well, and we have 6 links and logistics projects. They're the classic ones, where we have contributed with about 55 million. And we have 12 projects about scrubbers on links. And it was a very prolific call for those projects last year. These are the self-funded actions after the first call. The regular ones, so some of those were presented today, so I don't need to really refer to them, but you see the table with figures, which you can also study later when we have access to the presentations from the website. These are the 12 scrubber projects after the first CEF call. Again, very busy northern part of Europe. However, things go a bit further down, and we have also a Biscay line going to Santander and Bilbao. A snapshot of some figures from the last call. This call is still under evaluation, so I cannot update you with anything more than this. However, we've received 48 applications asking for about 408 million euro support, which is about 2.5 times more than the available budget. What is disappointing from our perspective is the cohesion call, which was very much undersubscribed, and basically utilization of this 150 million there will not happen, I can say. Which is really a miss and another issue which we perhaps need to address. So thank you very much for your attention, and enjoy the
We just have to say that it is member states' responsibility, that no one is submitting to the cohesion. It's not certainly INEA or ourselves. It is a pity. Well, it's something that we have to live with and correct for next time. But many of our stakeholders that tried to submit projects via the cohesion fund saw it denied, namely in Greece and in other countries. Slovenia.
Please.
Well, our dear friend Sonke is from the ISL, is the Institute for Shipping and Logistics Environment, and he's sort of our religious protector. So he's the man making sure that whatever we use as data in the BIP is as fundamental. So ISL is trying to give us an approach, a Motors of the Sea approach to key performance indicators. We also are fed up with empty key performance indicators, so we are trying to come with sensible key performance indicators that meet and reflect the needs of the Motors of the Sea and not something imported from somewhere. ISL is trying to do a scientific work about it. They are our key element to gather data, and we'll be happy to discuss with you, and I think that the presentation that you're going to do is going to be self-explanatory. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Jose, for the introduction. Yes, my name is Sönke Maat from the Institute of Shipping Economics and Logistics, ISL. And as I said, we'll do a short presentation, which will be in two parts. First, our general approach to the development of the detailed implementation plan, or our contribution to this development. And the second part, more data related, and it's, I think, also a good way to wrap up the session, because we will see a lot of the projects we've already seen today on different maps.
How long is 2 miles?
First, the general approach. How do we want to contribute to the development of horizontal priorities for the detailed implementation plan? The aim of the project, as you all know, is to draft a new detailed implementation plan for motorways of the sea. So we already have, and we are still developing, also with the free feedback from these fora, a list of development options, as we call them, so many different ideas of what the next DIP could contain, which are sorted, as Brian presented in the beginning, in 3 pillars or 3 areas, which is the environment, then the integration of maritime transport and logistics chain, which is the topic today, and the from today, human element, safety and traffic management. For as many of these development options as possible, we're trying to identify key performance indicators. And as we are thinking in horizontal priorities, or a development priority can only be something where there's a need in many ports. We're not looking at single projects, but we're looking to develop these development priorities. So how can we measure this adequacy? How can we define this? Actually, we are comparing a specific aim. This can be a political aim, or an aim that comes from stakeholders, or from certain, say, industry standards. And we compare it with the average status quo of the status quo for all ports to see whether there's still a gap to be filled, or whether we can say this is an issue more or less solved already, and only in singular ports this can be an issue. So where can we measure the adequacy in the motorways of the sea context? Well, first it's the links, of course. So it's the ships sailing between the 2 ports, but also maybe the ship routes, the vessel traffic management systems in place, the navigability, safety issues, and so on and so forth. But also, of course, scrubber or LNG on ships would be in this part. Then there's the adequacy of terminals, or the seaside access of ports, so the approach channel, the maximum water depth, maximum ship sizes, but also terminal structure, equipment could be an issue. Then the third part is rail connections, road connections to the hinterland, not to the long distance hinterland, because that's then part of the core network corridors, of course, but for example, linking a terminal that doesn't have a rail access to a nearby combined terminal, issues like that, which are still within the vicinity of the port, that can also be part of these of the motorways of the sea. So how then can we measure adequacy? As I said, the adequacy just means appropriate with regard to benchmark or aim set before, set in the first round in the selection of development options. And then we need comparable, that's very important because we're looking at all ports at the same time, neutral measures of adequacy. So we have to define key performance indicators, you know, from the corridor studies, numbers of rail tracks, for example, but also number of the connection of a port with the hinterland. You can also look at the number of rail tracks, distance you have to use by using diesel, things like that. Then the maximum ship draught on the one hand and the port approach, but also we're looking at the say major terminals or the representative terminals in each port. So even if a port has a very strong draught because it has a tanker terminal, this may not be the case for the container terminal or ro-ro terminal. As a second step, we need to keep in mind that not all ports are the same. So adequacy or the key performance indicator, maybe 10-meter depth is perfectly fine for a ro-ro port, but if you want to play in the first league of deep-sea container ports, then of course it's not sufficient. So you have to look, this adequacy has to be done for different port groups separately. The way we are trying to define these benchmarks or top performers, if it's not just a political aim set beforehand, for example, like the promulgation of LNG ships, but when we need to find out what's a benchmark, what's a sensible benchmark, we are looking at the top performers or benchmark ports in a certain range, or of a certain type, for example, major ro-ro ports, major container ports, and then we are looking